Hello and welcome, and I'm Apeksha, your host for today's session, and you're watching the 25th edition of Consumer Education Series, Nivesh Kar Befikar, presented to you by PolicyBazaar.com. So today we'll talk a little about trading stock. Let's see what we have in store. So trading in stock markets is always synonymous with risks. And do you know why? It's due to the ever-changing nature of the financial market and the variance in returns. While volatility makes trading a bit difficult, it is also an ideal gateway for many new revenue opportunities. So let's take the current scenario into account. Since the pandemic has struck, volatility in the market has increased, and you all are aware of it. And this is exactly where the factor of mitigating trading risks comes into the picture. So what should we do? We must learn and understand the trends to take the right action on your portfolio that you have built over the years. To help you understand where and what to invest in, today we have with us an esteemed panel, Ms. Reshma Banda, Head Equity and Executive Vice President, Investment, Bajaj Allianz Life Insurance Company. Accompanying her is our expert from Policy Bazaar, Vivek Jain, Head of Investments. Welcome to the webinar, Reshma and Vivek.
Thank you, Apeksha, and welcome to all of our guests who have joined us today.
Yes, absolutely. So without further delay, I think let's deep dive and find out basically what steps can be taken to weather this volatility and book your profits, if I may say. Moving on to Reshma, I would like to say that, COVID-19 is not out of the woods yet, and we all know that. And the threat of third wave is still doing the rounds. What are your views on the current market performance? Will it sustain? And what can we expect in the coming times? If you can please elaborate to the audience and take us through the presentation that we have prepared for the audience here.
A big thank you to everybody for taking the time out for this interaction. So let me start by what is happening in the globe. So I'm going to start with, say, GDP growth. Now, GDP, as we all know, is a number which tells us what is happening across the globe. Whether we are seeing a growth happen, whether we are seeing a degrowth happen, and what are the prospects of different regions. So here, let's look at the numbers. In the last year, we saw the GDP growth decline by 3.2%. And it wasn't just one or two countries that resulted in this. Every country in the world, other than China, saw a degrowth happen. And this was because of restrictions due to the pandemic that happened in the year. Now, on the back of a low or a decline in the last year, what do we see this year? This year, we've seen, at least in India, second wave happen. In the Middle East also, we've seen the second, the third wave happen. We've seen restrictions in terms of travel across different countries. So we've seen countries locked down. But nonetheless, the kind of movement that we are seeing within each of these countries is a lot better than what we've seen in the last year. So on the back of a decline in the last year, we only expect a growth this year. And wherever there has been a steeper decline last year, or rather a more strict closure, we would expect the economy to resound with a major bang in this year. So if we look at India, we saw the highest decline among this group of countries that I'm showing in this slide, which is a decline of 7.3%. And we see that this growth is going to be 9.5%, which is estimated. These are not my estimates, these are the IMF estimates. So this is what they've been expecting. Now the way the pandemic has progressed is been a lot slower and a lot more back-ended than what we initially thought. So it's taking up a lot more time. It's something which is stretching over a far higher period of time than what we thought initially. So now the attitude is also becoming that this is going to be an issue which is going to prolong over the next 2 or 3 years, and we need to learn how to live with it. And that is what most countries and most geographies are doing right now, to undertake measures as to how we can manage this. So taking this into consideration, what we've seen is that as countries are getting acclimatized to this change scenario, we are seeing some GDP cuts happen in 21. But we are seeing the GDP cuts only increase further from 22 onwards. So overall, if we look at for the world, we're still expecting 6% growth in GDP. But in 2022, we've only seen this number getting higher. This would be as the world gets better control overall on the pandemic and how to deal with this virus. As the virus is not going to go away in a hurry, it is going to be here, but we would be better placed to tackle it. This could be by means of vaccines and other measures that various governments are undertaking. So overall, we are on a path of recovery. Now, just moving on to other variables, what has the world done to combat this entire pandemic? So if we look at other countries in the developed world, say countries like the US, they have sent a lot of liquidity, where we've had central banks come out and print money. That printed money is coming and it has helped a lot of other countries and the citizens who require funding and to come out of this pandemic faster. So due to that, we've seen the central banks flood all the global markets with liquidity. And this has resulted in inflation rising. With lots of money, yes, inflation does rise. So this is one of the biggest risks that we are facing going forward. And with inflation rising, the tapering or rather, this money which has been flooded the global markets to tackle the pandemic needs to reduce at some point. So yes, the visibility on that is a lot closer than it was at the start of the pandemic. But we should also appreciate that due to this entire flood of liquidity, a lot of care has been taken and a lot of recovery has happened in different markets. So yes, it is going to happen, but it's going to be a gradual tapering and it's not going to happen in a hurry. And we don't think it's going to happen anywhere right now, but it's a good 5 to 6 months away, or probably towards the end of this year, the end of this calendar year. This kind of money that has come in, what have we seen? How have the markets reacted? Of course, the real economy has got benefited, but in addition to that, all the stock markets across the globe have seen a major rally. So here what I've done is I've put up a whole lot of all the main stock markets in the world, and you look at it, whether you see a US, you see an Australia, you see a France, and you see developed markets like an India, you could also see Korea. Everybody has been rallying. Of course, India has been at the forefront. India has been right at the forefront where we've delivered 50% return, and the 5-year and the 10-year return has also been most superior compared to other geographies. So yes, we've seen this massive rally. Now, at the bottom of the chart, we've got a few countries where it's been negative, and that is, of course, it is China. So yes, you might raise the question that in China, why have we seen markets being negative despite GDP growth being positive? But we should understand that in China, it's not directly correlated. It is also because of individual policies of the government. So let us focus on the top half of the countries that we have over here and understand what is the kind of growth that has happened over here. Moving on to the other numbers. Now, this year what we've done is we've tried to look at what is the GDP to market cap ratio. Now, in the last year, in the first chart itself, I showed you that in the last year, we've seen the GDP compress. So the GDP has only become less, but the markets have moved up. So obviously, this ratio that we are showing you over here, it is going to surge up. So on an overall basis, yes, this is looking very high. So we are at much higher levels than the global average. So we normally trade in the range of closer to say 100% or slightly over 100%. But because of this kind of massive liquidity that is coming, yes, we are trading at higher than the overall averages. So this means that the price that we are paying in the markets right now is not cheap compared to what it is traded at historically. So yes, we are on the higher side in terms of valuations. Next chart that we have as to what is really happening in the pandemic. Are we going to expect another decline of say 7% that we've seen in the last year? And how is the situation different from the previous year? So no. So to answer the first question, no, we are not going to see that kind of decline. So let's look at the first chart. Here in the month of August, September 20, we've seen a slight increase, which was the first wave that we saw in India. And in the months of April and May 21, we've seen the second wave. As of now, the cases have been tapering or more or less flat. And yes, the medical fraternity is expecting a third wave, but that is some time away. Now, in the interim, what has the government done? As you are all aware, in every country in the world, the focus has been on vaccinations because the vaccine is not going to go. The focus is on protecting individuals and for them to recover at a faster pace. So yes, we are doing as much vaccination as is possible, and that is the state in India also. The kind of vaccinations that is happening and the daily tests that are also happening has been moving up. But now if we look at the COVID detection rate in India, it is lower at 2% compared to 22% that we had earlier. The big risk is the Delta variant. So moving back on the GDP growth that we expect, so are we on track for seeing a growth in GDP this year on the back of a decline that we saw last year? So let us look at the first quarter numbers here. Here we are seeing a 20% growth in GDP that has already come in the first quarter. So yes, we are very much on track for having a strong growth in the GDP in the coming year. And with the fundamental economy of the country being well on track, yes, we think, we are well on track for the markets also to deliver good returns. Let's look at, how much of the business has resumed. So if we go back a year, say in April 2020, that is last year, we were operating only at 45% was the business was functioning compared to 100% that we are functioning at right now. So yes, the economy is working at normal levels right now. And we shouldn't be worried that, we are working at below peak levels. So this is a chart that we have from Nomura, India. So let's take that over here and let's understand that, we are doing quite well right now. What has happened in the equity market rally that we've seen in India? It's been relatively broad-based, but yes, there have been certain sectors which have done exceedingly well. So we have global sectors like say the metals, say IT, which has done really well. And they have given returns of say 90% or 100% plus over the year. Yes, some domestic sectors have been laggards like say the FMCG and the automobile sector because India has been hit comparatively more than other countries. But on an overall basis, we've only done well. What is happening in the equity markets? We are seeing massive IPOs coming. We are seeing new IPOs coming across companies. We are seeing the entire tech boom happen. We are seeing the financial technology companies that are coming to the fore. We've seen companies like a Zomato, which has come across with an IPO. We've got Paytm and MobiKwik, which are mobile wallets, which is on the anvil. So there's a lot of new generation businesses that would come for listing. We've also seen a lot of interest in other businesses like say the electric vehicles, because this is the way the entire world is moving towards the future. With this pandemic, we have only hastened this shift. Like people are working from home, so we've seen a lot of spurt in a lot of the new age technologies. And all these companies with the kind of growth they are seeing, they're coming to the markets to raise money. So here, if we look at what the numbers are like, we see the foreign portfolio in investments was exceedingly strong in the last year. We saw more than 2 lakh crores, 2.5 lakh crore plus come in last year. But this year, we have seen the domestics continuing to put money on a regular basis. So in the last 5 months, we've seen lots of money come in. It has been on a regular basis where we've already exceeded more than 45,000. Let's come back to the fundamentals, that what is happening. If we look at the growth rate of the economy, by that, let's look at the Nifty. Nifty is the top 50 companies in the country. The top 50, the largest, the biggest. And what have we seen? Despite a pandemic in FY21, if we look at the first chart over here, we've seen the Nifty company profits increase. So it's actually gone up from 457 to 535. So despite a negative GDP growth, we've only seen a resilient economy where there's been growth. And with there be growth in the profits of the company, we are seeing a growth in the stock markets and the capital markets. That is all that is getting reflected over here. And let's focus on the chart on the right. We are seeing the same trend continue, where in the first quarter results of June, we only saw the numbers coming in higher. So yes, we've seen GDP, we've seen profit growth in June 21 quarter only move up to the extent of 41%. So please do not get scared by that negative number of GDP being -7. Despite that -7 despite that minus number last year, we're still seeing profit growth. And with this profit growth, we are seeing the markets getting supported by fundamentals and not just the new money which is coming in on a regular basis. So it is two factors. It is fundamental profit growth as well as money coming in. Let's look at where valuations are right now. And here, if we look at valuations, yes, valuations are looking a little expensive and they are higher than the all-time average. So yes, we are higher than the mean. If we look at the lower number, that is the capital, if we look at the lower number and we see where we are trading on a market cap to GDP, we are marginally higher. But let's look at that number and say we are not totally out of whack. We are not at say 200% as out in other countries are. So yes, we are expensive, but we are not terribly expensive. So yes, valuations are on the higher side. It doesn't look like a screaming buy right now, but this doesn't tell you not to get invested either. Moving on to where the Reserve Bank is, we are seeing interest rates being extremely accommodative. So interest rates continue to stay low. So the 10-year government security is being closer to 6%, and we think that is how it is going to stay, even with some kind of accommodative measures being taken by the central banks in the US. Moving on to fund performance. So fund performance at Bajaj Allianz, what has happened is we still would want to focus on longer term returns, and we are focusing on the kind of rolling returns that are happening. So rolling returns are the returns that we look on a longer term basis, and we take multiple values. So for every year, we will have so many readings of rolling returns, and we would look at how many readings have actually beaten the benchmark. So that is what we are focusing on, because that is what gives you an impact of the markets being constant. Now, if we look at what has happened in the last year, we've seen some amount of underperformance compared to the benchmark. And why has this happened? One of the main reasons why this has happened is that we have been underinvested in the last year. Instead of being fully invested, we have stayed at lower levels, being little bit worried about how the markets would perform, as the macroeconomic numbers were not looking too good. But yes, we were pleasantly surprised with the profit numbers. So that is why this disconnect has happened. We still look at returns on a longer term basis. We've given superior returns, where the Nifty index is given 13%, and we have generated anything between 15 and 17% on a 10-year basis. So if you need to be invested in India, these are the regions to be invested in on a longer term basis. Same thing I would also say for the mid-cap index. So mid-cap is also given 16% plus returns on a longer term basis, as compared to 14.6% for the Nifty mid-cap index. Now, what I spoke about was the rolling returns versus the index in the peer category. So we've done it for the pure stock fund, and we've done it for the equity growth fund. So these are the two large funds that we have in the large cap category. And if you look at it here, they have outperformed the benchmark for over 95% of the time in both these time frames. If you want, I could explain a little bit more about rolling returns and the kind of calculations we've done. So here we've taken 61 calculations, because we've got 60 months of calculation, as we have been calculating this return, 5-year rolling returns over a 10-year period. So for those 60 different readings that we have calculated how much come in each of the different quartiles. So these funds have done well on a consistent basis. So same thing with the accelerated mid-cap fund also. So this is a fund that has been part of the first and the second quartile most of the times. It's been 90% in the first and second quartile. Here I'll just touch a little bit on the systematic investment theme. So here what we are saying is that if you assume an investor starts an SIP in Bajaj Allianz, at the previous market peak of 2007, they would have still made money. Assuming a 16% IRR, that 50,000 on an annual basis, so 50,000 into 10, that would be 5 lakhs. It would have resulted into a 16.1% IRR over a period of time if they were invested in a pure stock fund. So the 6.5 would become these kind of numbers. This is what we are stating right now. These are actual numbers. These are not numbers that I am working on. These are the numbers that the funds have actually delivered in the past. And just to conclude, in the interest of time, what I would like to talk about are the different products that we offer at Bajaj Allianz Life Insurance. So there are different funds. So the first one we have is a Smart Protect Gold, which is a pure term insurance plan. This is not an investment plan. So if somebody wants to only take insurance, this is what we have. Then we have a guaranteed income goal, where here there is a guaranteed return that we will give you on every year over the duration of the product, plus there is an insurance cover. Then we have a flexi income gold, which has 40% equity allocation. Then there is a pension product or guaranteed pension gold. And to conclude, we have Smart Wealth Gold and Gold Assure, where we have a numerous underlying funds across asset classes like equity, fixed income, liquid, as well as there are various balanced and asset allocation funds. So that in a nutshell is the entire basket of products that we have that would be critical and important for an individual to reach their life goals. So with this and in the interest of time, I would conclude and hand it over to Apeksha as we move forward in this interaction. So thank you very much, everybody.
Thank you so much, Reshma ma'am. It's been a quite insightful presentation, I must say. And we had, she did mention all the products that is available on Bajaj Allianz Live, and any doubts you can reach out to us and we can address them on the ID policybazaar@policybazaar.com, and we'll have all your questions addressed. Moving on to Vivek here, our Policy Bazaar business head of investment. Vivek, if you would quickly want to take the audience through all the options available and how Policy Bazaar is, going to help here and assist everyone out there.
Okay, I think I'll very quickly cover some data points, and I think Reshma ma'am has already covered most of these in her presentation. As we see, I think in the last 1 year, India's growth story has been very, very strong, and as ma'am mentioned, that it has kind of outperformed all the markets, be it developing markets or developed markets. And last 1 year, if you look at 9 September to 7 September 2020-21, the markets have given about 53% absolute return, versus all other countries have also given good returns, but they are in the range of 10 to 25-30%, and while India the returns are at 53%. One more data point. So I think the market right now is at an all-time high. So I think a lot of people would be thinking that is it the right time to start investing, and is it the right time to enter? So one, I think there is no right or wrong time to enter the market. I think the best, if you are especially a person who is investing for the first time or does not have a lot of time to kind of manage their investments actively, it is always a good idea to maybe invest in a monthly investment plan where you're kind of investing monthly, and basically your portfolio kind of gets averaged out over a long term. And that's why the market linked products, the unit linked products that we have, for example Gold Assure, is very, very popular on our portal, because it kind of over 5 years it kind of averages out your NAV, and you are able to get very good returns. But looking at where we are currently, so I think markets are at an all-time high, but I think India's growth story is just starting up. Right now we are at 2.8 trillion GDP, and if we look at the developed economies like US, China or Japan, when they move from 2 trillion to 5 trillion, their stock markets, their respective stock markets have given very, very strong returns, and the CAGR annualized returns is really high as 30%. Yes, it may not be like the historical returns may not be reflective of the future, but what I think the experts are saying is that the India growth story has just started. So I think even though the market is at an all-time high, you can still enter the market. Some more snippets from what experts are saying. I think Rakesh Jhunjhunwala, who is one of the ace investor, he kind of, in his opinion, he doesn't see any threat from the third wave, which I think hopefully may not come, given the aggressive rate of vaccination that we are having in India. Almost we've already done with 73 crores of vaccinations in India, which I think covers almost 50% plus of the adult population. And Mr. Ramdev Agarwal also says he's looking at Sensex being at about 2 lakh in 10 years, which is almost 4 times of where we are today. And Mr. Agarwal is from Motilal Oswal Financial Services. So I think experts are still very, very bullish about the market, even though the markets are at an all-time high. I would just actually touch upon one specific product that we have from Bajaj Allianz, which is the capital guarantee solution. And this is I think one of the most popular product right now available on the Policybazaar platform. The reason for this is that this is a market linked plan where you have no risk to capital. Basically, the amount that you are investing is 100% secure. So you are getting the upside of market linked returns, but there is no downside. Even if the market starts falling, your money that you have invested is always secure. So this is something, and how we manage this is basically part of your money goes in market linked plans, which will give you the market linked upside, and rest of the money goes in guaranteed return plan, which is either goal suraksha or guaranteed income goal, and that kind of the return from that kind of ensures that your capital is always protected and capital is always guaranteed. So this is one product that you should definitely look out for, given the markets are at an all-time high, and if you believe that there will be some downfall in the market, I think this is a brilliant solution to that. That if the markets go up, you get the benefit, and if the markets go down, you still are not having any losses. And this comes in with the inbuilt life cover from day one throughout the policy term. And the typically, if you look at historically, these basically Bajaj Life Goal Assure has had very strong historical returns, and the returns from this product historically will be much better than FD or debt funds. And we also have tax benefit under Section 80C, and the maturity value is also tax free. Very quickly, I think Reshma ma'am briefly touched on this. There are guaranteed return plans also available from Bajaj Life and other partners on our website, wherein basically you invest for a certain period of time, say 5 years or 10 years, and you get a guaranteed return either in the form of income or in the form of lump sum after 15 years or 20 years. And why these plans are superior than investing in an AFD is, one, the interest rates that you're getting, the IRR that you're getting on these plans is more than what you're getting in top banks in fixed deposits. While top banks in fixed deposits are giving about 5.4%, these plans are giving you returns as high as 5.8%. And these the returns that you're making again is tax free under Section 1010D. So effectively in a FD, if you're in a 30% tax bracket, you end up making only 4% return, while in this you will make about 5.8% return. And then of course you also have the market linked option, which is Bajaj Goal Assure. And here the interesting part is that Goal Assure was the first product in the ULIP industry which kind of returns the mortality charges. So you are in a way getting life cover which is free of cost, because whatever charges you pay for mortality are returned to you at the time of maturity. So this is something, and here you have options of partial withdrawals after 5 years, you have tax benefits, and you have unlimited free switching. This is something that I think really scores over mutual funds, because you can switch your money between debt and equity anytime, and there are no exit load or exit charges or any tax that you pay while moving from debt to equity fund. So if you look at Goal Assure, you have all kinds of equity funds. You have mid cap fund, you have large cap fund, and you also have debt funds. So you can switch your money, and you can basically break your overall investment and diversify it amongst different kind of funds. In case you want to reach us, you can download our Policybazaar app on the Play Store, or you can email us at policybazaar@policybazaar.com.
Great. Thank you, Vivek, for sharing your insights and helping our viewers understand this. Now, since you mentioned about tax benefits, I already have a few questions aligned on that, and I would like to ask you. We have a question here from Shubhani. She says, what would be the maximum tax benefit one can get while investing? Which schemes provide maximum tax benefit?
Basically, under Section 80C, the maximum tax benefit that you can avail is up to 1.5 lakhs. And under Section 1010D, if the ULIP investment is less than 2.5 lakhs, then the maturity amount is also tax-free.
There are a lot of questions coming in, interesting questions coming in for Reshma ma'am here. Moving on to Reshma ma'am, we have a question here from Rohan Chaudhary. He says, with India expected to grow to 5 trillion soon, where should NRIs invest to be part of India's growth story? Which is a very good question, if I may say.
It's not going to be a growth of just one sector. It's going to be a broad-based growth that is going to happen. This is going to be across sectors and across regions and across countries, across companies that we are going to see this kind of growth. So it would not be right to restrict your investment just to any specific sector or to any specific theme. Additionally, let me add that we are seeing a lot of new age sectors that have come to the fore. And the second point I would want to make is in the pandemic. So with the pandemic, we've seen a major transformation happen in the economy as a whole. So we've seen a lot of permutations and combinations of how people are working in a changed environment. So an important case in point that I would like to point out is going to be the work from home scenario. A lot of the professionals, probably people like you and me and people in the audience, a lot of them are listening to this call or they are taking this call from home compared to, in the earlier times we would be in office. Now with this entire switch of say working from home, there's a major change that has happened in the economy. So say transport, which was a lot more important earlier, may not be as important as it was then, as in the compared to the past. It may not be as important in the present. Second thing is, even if you're looking at transport, people would look at individual vehicles versus shared vehicles. If you're working from home, you could look at having a larger house compared to a smaller house. You could see changes happening on the office sharing and the shared workspace regime. So there are lots of new changes happening. In addition to that, we're seeing a major revolution happen in the Indian IT sector. So there's a lot of things happening on the technology side. Like when we talk to IT companies, they've all moved home. All the employees are working from home. So that is increasing levels of say productivity. It is impacting wage hikes. And it's also impacting the specific economies of certain regions. So these are having very far-reaching impacts. So yes, we are going to see India grow from a 2 or a 2.5 trillion economy to 5 trillion. And it is going to be driven by, I would say, lots of technology changes that are going to happen, plus a mix of the old generation sectors also. So for any individual and especially for an NRI to benefit from this, they need to be invested in the capital markets, or I would say the equity markets of the country. At this juncture, where I did share charts regarding where the valuations are, India is not terribly cheap right now, but it's not terribly expensive either. So what I would suggest is that an individual needs to invest in a diversified equity fund. They should refrain from getting into a mid-cap fund at this juncture. Maybe a large-cap oriented fund would be the best option for a risk-taking investor. Someone who wants to take a slightly lower risk than that could look at a balanced fund. But I would still suggest that, an individual who wants to play this India growth transformation story, they should be invested in equity assets in the country.
That is correct, Reshma ma'am. But you mentioned because of COVID now and whatever the repercussions are. But what about the post-COVID world? I also have a question here which has come to me, and Vijay is the person. He says, my question is post-COVID, where there can be a change in Indian market when other countries recover gradually. What is one supposed to do then?
See, when other countries recover gradually, India is also recovering. We are also in a recovery mode, and it's not going to be India in isolation. The entire globe is recovering. But there is a change in lifestyle that is happening. Like, let me put across a question to everybody here. Did any of us think that, maybe Vivek or maybe I could talk about our experience. Did we ever think that, we could be at home and work successfully for 6 months at a stretch without traveling to another city? But we have done it. There has been a change that has happened, and we have learned to adapt to this change. And successfully, like business has continued as usual. Have we seen a business or work getting impacted per se? So that hasn't happened. So yes, post-COVID, let us appreciate that human beings, each of us as individuals, we are very adaptive. We will change, we will move forward with the new times. And with the new times, we are seeing new business models take off. So let me give another example of a recent IPO that has happened. So look at a Zomato, look at a Swiggy. We've seen a resurgence happen in home delivery. People have been stuck at home, people want to go out, but yes, are we missing restaurant food? Yes, we are missing food. So what are we doing? We are getting the food home, but we're still having it. So yes, we need to appreciate that this is what the human race is all about. We do change, we do adapt, and we do move on. So yes, we will see this happen, and all the economies will change.
Reshma ma'am, I have another question for you, and since we spoke of many industries, there's a question which is pretty valid, and it's also from Rohan. He says there are new age sectors which have come into focus, like the EV, electric vehicle, fintech, etc. What is your sectoral outlook currently with regards to these?
So see, we remain very optimistic on new age sectors. Now this could be something, say, in the financial technology space. So we are seeing a lot of online transaction happen. We don't step out to a bank as frequently as we used to. We tend to use a lot of other products of financial innovation. We are paying through wallets. We are paying through credit cards. We are there's a newer concept of BNPL which has come to the fore. We are seeing delivery models also happen. We've seen electric vehicles also come. So yes, there are lots of new age sectors that are coming. There are lots of new companies that are there in this sector. And a lot of them are coming for IPOs. So as they come, so we wouldn't be investing in very small companies which are at the pre-IPO stage. We stay restricted largely to the listed space. Yes, we do invest in alternate investment funds who do take some exposure to this. But our total exposure there is going to be very minuscule. Let us also understand that if you invest in some of those companies, there's a very high mortality rate for each of those companies. For every Swiggy or every Zomato that has survived, there'll probably be 1,000 companies that have failed. So we as an investor, we need to look at the risk factor also, especially when we are investing public money for all of you. So we would be investing, as of now, we do have investment in say a Zomato, we would have investment in a Burger King, we would have investment in all these new age businesses, but it would be a small portion of the total. So you as an investor would not miss out on the upside that could happen due to the rapid growth of this sector.
Vivek, moving on to you. So the question is, the person says, I have several questions from the point of view of an NRI close to retirement and intending to invest in India with some of my US retirement funds. Secondly, this is a life insurance linked type of investment. What are the medical clearances needed?
There are products available from insurance companies which is basically an annuity product wherein you typically pay once, and your pension can start either immediately or you can defer the pension by 5 years or 10 years. And in fact, Bajaj has a very unique plan wherein instead of paying one time, you can pay in a regular fashion either monthly or annually for 5 years. And I think so that plan, if you're nearing retirement, will not have any life cover, and so there'll be no medical clearances that will be required. So I think if you are nearing retirement, you should definitely explore annuity option, both immediate annuity or deferred annuity, depending on if you can defer your pension by say 5 years or 10 years, then you can look at deferred annuity. But if you need pension immediately, then you can look at immediate annuity.
Now, Vivek, we've spoken a little about the annuity side. What I see is some questions on the guaranteed side. There's a question here which reads, do we get some additional interest on the guaranteed maturity amount, or only is the invested amount returned?
So in the capital guarantee solution that I discussed, part of your money is invested in guaranteed return plans, which ensures that your capital that you have invested is secure even in a downturn situation and even if the markets fall. But if the markets do well, so you also have part of your money invested in the market, so you will get an upside from the market. So typically if the Indian markets continue to give 12 to 14% returns, which they have historically given in the last 10 to 15 years, you should be able to, on the capital guarantee solution, you should be able to make about 8 to 10% returns comfortably. So it's not that you only get back the money that you have invested, you will also make an upside if you are invested for say about 10 years in the market.
Vivek, since you've mentioned capital guarantee plans, would you want to talk a little more elaborate about them? Because I think it will help our viewers listening in, and you never know, they might get to know what in return is there for them and go for it.
Capital guarantee plans is actually a unique solution that we co-created with Bajaj and some other partners as well. And this is something that I think came out of the pandemic only, because a lot of our customers were kind of scared with the kind of basically when the markets had collapsed from 42,000 levels in March 2020 to about 28,000 levels. So that's when we came up with a combination called capital guarantee solution, which is a combination of a guaranteed return plan and a market linked ULIP, which in Bajaj's case it is a goal assure and guaranteed income goal, wherein the invested amount, the money that the person is investing, is always safe, and you're also getting the market upside. So basically it is, you will get good returns with no risk to capital. So and that's why this is becoming very, very popular on our portal.
This is definitely a good proposition, and like you said, there's a lot of attraction for this kind of a product currently in the market. So everyone who's keen to know, please go check out, and we can assist you with the details of the plans available, some of which Vivek has already mentioned. One more question, Vivek, and this is from Sidhesh. Before I move on to Reshma ma'am, he says, if I'm looking to invest 25 to 50 lakh rupees for next 5-year minimum term, what are the options that he has to maximize growth, and should money be invested at one time, or is this a recurring basis which will take place?
Instead of investing all the money at one time, if you can maybe so I would say you should basically use a diversified approach. And if you have, like Reshma ma'am mentioned, if you have a 10-year horizon for your investment, then maybe equity markets may be the way to go. But you should put some of your portfolio in maybe debt and some of it in the equity market, and equity market also can be in large cap funds, mid cap funds, and small cap funds. And that's why that's where basically the market linked ULIP plans really score, because if you buy, say, a product like Goal Assure, you have an option to invest in all of these funds at one go. So what I would suggest is, if you have 25 to 50 lakhs, maybe you should invest it across different asset classes, guaranteed as well as market linked. And you should, I think, better to invest it in a monthly or an annual fashion rather than investing all of the money at one time. We can, I think, if you want specific help on which plan to go with, maybe you can connect with one of our advisors, and we'll definitely be able to help you on that.
So we'll take this one last question from Reshma ma'am, and we've already spoken about unit-linked ULIP plans basically. Ma'am, this question is from Prashant Goda. He says, how expensive are ULIPs and what are the charges?
ULIP is a product under which there are various fund options on the investment side, plus it offers you a mortality cover. Now, with all the new generation ULIPs that Bajaj Allianz Life Insurance has launched, we have a facility which is called return of mortality. Now, what does return of mortality mean? That means at the start, when you invest in a ULIP, through the duration of the ULIP, there is a mortality charge which gets deducted. But assuming that person survives through that entire duration of the product, that amount comes back to you. So effectively, whatever amount that you are paying or whatever deduction that is happening for mortality will come back to you. The other major charge that is there for a ULIP is the fund management charge. Now, fund management charge for all the ULIPs are capped by IRDA at 1.35%. Now, especially for the ULIP funds, if you compare the FMC to other instruments like, say, mutual funds and PMS and other options that are available in the market, this is a much lower charge as compared to all these other options. So 1.35% effectively would be the charge for any person to invest in a ULIP, and the ROMC is something that is going to be returned to you at a later date. Hence, if you look at this new age ULIP, the kind of charges that are there would be among the lowest that is prevalent through the life history of the ULIP. So since this product has been in existence or over say the last 15 to 20 years, this is the time where this entire charges are so low. And the ROMC coming back to you is a benefit to you. Let's say in the unfortunate event of someone passing away, you would not get your ROMC back obviously, but you would be getting the benefit, you would be getting the death benefit. So net, it is a win-win proposition for any customer because you're getting the investment upside plus you're getting a mortality benefit at the lowest possible charges that have been possible since the history of this product.
Totally. The new age ULIPs, in case you haven't checked out yet, please don't go by the old stories of the charges levied. Please go and check out the new age ULIPs. And like Reshma ma'am explains the charges, there are only a few. So please do check it out. So with that, we come to an end of the session. Thank you everyone for joining us. Thank you Reshma ma'am and thank you Vivek for an insightful session. Hope our viewers did learn a lot today from all the insights that were shared, and anyone has any question and in case we have not been able to address here like we mentioned earlier, please write into us on Policy Bazaar show@policybazaar.com and we'll have it picked up. Thank you everyone for tuning in.